This month's Where Did the Road Go is sponsored by the following awesome individuals. Greg Ross, Allison Cook, Super Inframan, 36 Dingo, Yvonne Williams, and Michael Friske. Thank you so much for helping make this show possible.
Transmission start. Welcome to Where Did the Road Go? Join us as we wander off the path and explore lost history, consciousness, the paranormal, unexplained mysteries, alternative thought, and much more. We are present on the web at wheredidtheroadgo.com. Now here is your host, Soraya.
Welcome to this edition of Where Did the Road Go? And tonight I have with me Saxon.
Hello, hello.
Chris Ernst.
Hello, everybody.
And Adrian.
Hello.
So you guys have never been on with Adrian.
No.
Excited to.
Yeah.
And I have no idea what we're going to talk about.
Awesome.
We always figure out something.
Well, I was thinking we could talk about stuff interesting like Fortean stuff from 2025, but honestly, nothing really stands out to me. Most of the stuff was UFO related. Even the people who passed away were mostly UFO related, except maybe Christopher O'Brien,
Right.
who passed away at the beginning of the year. But still, the cattle mutilation subject gets kind of shoved in there with UFOs.
Right.
So it's kind of like that all goes to the UFO history show. It's not like there's really breaking Bigfoot or UFO or ghost news or anything really ultra weird going on that I can think of.
No.
Not really.
Agreed.
I mean, they were talking about the Comet for a little bit here and, Atlas Comet, whatever that is.
Even that gets thrown into the UFO thing.
Right?
Yeah, it does. So, I mean, that's the only thing I can think of, really.
Yeah, there was a lot of talk about the Comet. Laird Scranton was absolutely positive it was extraterrestrial. And I was like, I don't know, man. I don't see it.
I don't either.
It also assumes that anything coming here is going to be using our tech, our concepts of physics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes me kind of think of the science fiction stories where you have, people sent in suspended animation and then they arrive wherever they're going after, hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And it turns out that we developed a better way to travel within that time. And,
right.
The place they end up is already populated and everything. And, it is always weird to me that it's kind of like the wow signal too. Do we really expect any type of civilization or intelligence that can move faster than light to use radio waves?
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah, that's the thing. We assume everything's like us.
Yeah.
That there's only one way of looking at this stuff, and it's like that's not going to find us extraterrestrial life or other life that's here.
Yeah.
There was I think someone posted it in the Where Did the Road Go. There was an interesting ball lightning thing.
Oh.
Which was just this thing of ball lightning sitting in the field during a thunderstorm.
Oh, cool.
And I think if I remember right, someone's like, "Well, could it just be an orb?" And I'm like, "Well, couldn't orbs just be plasma?" It all comes down to the same thing.
Kind of circular there, yeah.
I did see some pretty nice photos this year of some really cool atmospheric stuff from space stations and high up. Some really cool sprites.
Yes. Yeah. The sprites that don't exist.
Right.
Until recently.
Yeah. They're so cool looking. Oh,
They
man.
are.
The red sprites and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's sort of a lesson there too. I mean, that we see repeatedly with science where pilots and stuff were reporting these things and they were like, "Nah, you're hallucinating."
Right.
And now they're like, "Oh yeah, look at the sprites. It's like the sprites you said weren't real." Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you can take a neutral sort of stance against this stuff. You can be like, "Well, we don't know what that is," and not be like, "No, that's not real."
Oh, I feel like that gaslighting happens all over science initially when things are brought up.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, totally.
And that's the thing. It's constant.
I think it's just like a natural human reaction to something that challenges your belief system.
True.
Yeah.
I'm not excusing it. I think it's terrible, but I think that's why it's so prevalent, you know?
Oh, I totally agree. I think we've seen humans do that in so many different situations over time. And, the stresses of any particular, like time period or generation, will make it worse or less bad. But no, I totally think that's right.
Well, look at the guy who proposed tectonic plate theory in the first place, and he was ridiculed and blackballed.
Right. Right.
So I mean, that's or Jacques Vallée with the whole search thing, where he wanted to do a text search, and they're like, you can't search text, you can only search numbers. It's like, why do we impose these limitations on things?
Yeah,
it's a weird thing to do.
Yeah, it's in all the layers of humanity for some reason.
Yeah,
I'm thinking about the little micro places it shows up. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
It is strange to me sometimes, like, to your point, Adrian, like how we just put limitations everywhere, and we always go to that, like, well, we can't do this kind of thing.
Everything, all of it.
Yeah, it's not even like one field or anything. It's just like, it's everything. And I don't know what that means. And I have these weird moments where I try to decide, like, maybe that was built into the Renaissance to try and like to branch off from trying to kind of like a symptom of trying to keep religion from creeping back in and taking over or something, or what.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
it does drive me crazy.
I think that might still just be a symptom of it. I think there's a root that's deeper,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's how institutions work too. I mean, I think I think you're both right. But for me, I always, I guess, the older I get and the more I've been part of like larger institutions and see how, like, when you get a bunch of people together who are trying to work in like a semi-democratic fashion within a hierarchy, it seems like this always happens. And it makes me think of, how like Greg Bishop would talk about doing, paranormal or occult or UFO work, and how it has to be a small group that like immediately disbands after a certain amount of time. And, some of that is probably for, more esoteric reasons, or I feel at least. But some of that is also, I think, that the more and more you have people trying to work together within the way that things are structured within like Western society these days, it's like the outcome cannot be anything but becoming this like stick in the mud bureaucracy that ends up becoming embedded. And, this is the way we do things. This is the way we think. Nothing outside it can come in. I don't know. I guess I work at a higher ed institution, so that's probably why. I think.
Indoctrination of like groupthink. It's definitely
exactly.
It's just part of civilization as a whole,
Yeah.
I have a buddy that always jokes about, if you're really good at something, they will put you in charge of other people that are doing it and put you behind a desk with a spreadsheet as opposed to actually doing the thing that you're good at.
Yep.
Yeah.
And his whole life has been like trying to resist that.
Totally. Me too. Kind of.
Yeah.
When you talk about like giants, now there you had a religious that and the flood is where you see science put up a bulwark against religion. Because the Smithsonian, the one guy famously said there, like we're not going to take reports of giants. We're just because
Alice Herlica. I know his name. I remembered it this time.
I did not.
I cannot pronounce it, but if people want to follow up on this, well, I think it's important because it's been like, you go on someplace like Snopes, they're like, oh no, this isn't true, but it is true. It's just not exactly the way that they're describing it.
Right. Yeah.
Alice Herlica was this horrible eugenicist and racist. It was, and he had this like very specific, like he was basically trying to prove, because he believed that, Europe, that all humanity came from the Europeans, and from the European continent. And he was really into proving this. He was also a big eugenicist. And so he basically was like throwing away any evidence to the contrary. I mean, he easily, and thank God, got steamrolled with, out of Africa theory. But yeah.
But at the same time, he was able to suppress a lot of seemingly legitimate finds of giants.
Yeah.
And that leaves us with like, okay, so which ones are real? What is this? Was there another race, one of the many branches of humanity that was larger than us? I mean, I don't think that's that crazy of an idea.
No.
So,
well, no, I mean, we have, at least, God, I don't know if it's tens of thousands or 100,000 years of overlap with some of the other like Denisovians and, Neanderthals and
who we also didn't know about.
Yeah, who we also didn't know about. And, was it,
and we
who was it that went through South America? I'm sorry, go ahead, Adrian. Pardon me.
Oh, I'm sorry. We also existed at the same time as like various giant apes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, we did.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not that this counts as evidence of anything, but when I was really little, I used to have these reoccurring, really intense dreams about giants and giant apes.
Oh, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What were they like?
Okay, so I was a toddler when I had this one dream. Okay, so you know how, I don't know if this happens to you guys, I have some connective tissue disease stuff going on, so it could be just me, but I think it's a human experience. Sometimes when you're falling asleep, you can hear your heart beating sort of like in your ear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
That's
that would
annoying as
happen
hell.
when I was little, and it would be pretty loud, and it would, as I would fall asleep, it would translate into drums, like around a fire.
Oh.
And I would be in like Central or South America, and I was a man, and I was in some sort of like wooden or bamboo type cage, and I wasn't far from the fire, and I was going to be sacrificed to the big giant thing.
Okay.
And I was a toddler, and I definitely don't think I was exposed to any media or a story about that, because that would have been wildly inappropriate. And it was really vivid, and I don't know what I was tapping into, but that was a reoccurring, that sound in my ear would always bring, if that happened when I was falling asleep and I couldn't make it stop, that's the dream that I would go back into every time. The same one, it would repeat.
That's really interesting.
That when that happens to me, I can't get to sleep.
Okay. Interesting.
And it's definitely stress caused, because if I take something to reduce my stress, it goes away.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense. I always
Yeah.
have stress, so.
Don't we all?
So,
Go ahead.
yeah, I was just going to say the reason I was so curious about that, like, I've talked about in the show when I was like 16 and I had my first sort of like out of body experience or something like that, flying around and going out into the Southwest and meeting this giant wolf out in the desert and things like that.
Oh, cool.
I think it's been long enough that maybe you need to retell that story.
Okay. So I grew up on a farm, and this is not like a super nice farm or anything like that. This is just a farm. Fell asleep in my bed, and I literally like floated up, passed through the attic of the house. It was really interesting because as I was passing through all these things to the outside, I'm above a tree right next to the house, about 20 feet tall, or 20 feet in the air, I should say. And you could feel like the chill in the air and stuff like that. And I flew all around the farm for a while, and then I slowly started heading in a direction, and it was kind of interesting to head towards the Southwest, which would have been states away at this point, because everything else flying around the farm was exactly like the farm. But as I was leaving, it was kind of different, I guess. But I ended up like out in the desert with all of these multiple like dogs and coyotes and things dancing around a fire. And they were still, these weren't anthropomorphic animals. They were just dogs and coyotes and wolves and things. And they were yipping and bouncing and everything with the fire in the middle. And anyway, went from there and met this giant red wolf with antlers that was about the size of like a train car. He was massive. And anyway, it was really interesting meeting him, because I don't think I had a concept for big ideas at that point, but I definitely understood that like he operated under a different morality or something like that. or wasn't bound by the same rules that I was. And he could talk, but I don't remember what he told me. It was a very strange experience. But anyway, so that was the dream in and of itself. But that was one of those things that like stuck with me forever because, you know, I floated up out of my body and through the attic and all of that, as opposed to just like popping into a scene. And it was all from my perspective, of course, too. But probably, I don't know, a year or two later, the only dream I had that was sort of comparable to that or experience. And I don't remember the details as well. I've got it written down somewhere, though. But there was a moment I met something that was like a gorilla and a golden colored snow monkey together. And they could talk. Oh, yeah. They were fun. They were very like mischievous a little bit and, you know, fun. And so I drew those guys forever in like stories and images and pictures and things. So anytime, you know, we talk about, when I hear you mention like, you know, giant apes in your dreams, I was like, oh, I wonder if that was like what I read into.
Oh, interesting. No, I think it sounds different. Yours sounds really cool though.
These were friendly. You know, they were like there to help me, kind of passing by happy kind of thing. Like, oh, hey, you know, that kind of thing.
No, very foreboding and dangerous. And I was definitely the sacrifice in all of there were different ones where it felt like I was more on an island, but it was still warm weather. And I was a young woman and I was running through these. And this was recurring too, right around the same age up until I was about 7, probably. I remember having this one and I was running through fields of, I don't know, sugarcane maybe. And there was a giant ape way bigger than the other one that I was sacrificed to in those other dreams or was about to be. I never got to that part in the dreams, but it would be chasing me. And sometimes it would actually pick me up almost like in those old, weird, cheesy horror movies, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You know, have you ever come across I think it's a Kushtaka? Is it the Beaver Man? I may be mixing things up together there. I don't know, but it's a hairy hominid mythology with you know, some of the indigenous cultures in the Northwest.
Okay.
Anyway, that thing is scary.
Is it really large?
It's really large and dark, and it can materialize and dematerialize, and is, you know, not benign. It is an evil thing.
Okay.
And yeah, what you're talking about makes me think of that because it's just very scary.
Yeah. I mean, I was just putting together, you know, like sometimes you don't know what you're looking at and you just have to use the data that you have in your brain at the time. So I was a little kid. If it could have been something like that and I just wouldn't have known.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, to me, it sounds like you were having a past life dream. And I only say that from the experiences that I've had with, you know, people like I grew up with and heard stories from who would have very similar like past life dreams. I mean, there's this one older lady who was part of, you know, the group that my parents are part of. And she was really cool. She was this, you know, she was very powerful psychic. That's some way to describe it. She also invented and designed board games for these like Parker Brothers or Mattel or something. Very smart.
Wow.
And she had like past life dreams all the time. And some of them were from, I mean, essentially like, you know, pre-Diluvian Atlantis, whatever you want to call it, like some civilization that existed prior. And I remember talking about there being megafauna, like really big, like megafauna that were.
Yeah, I've had hundreds of dreams like that, like connected to like hundreds of different. I mean, some of them are repetitive, so I can remember them better. But I've had, you know, decades for this to happen since it started so young, and I just am so unsure about. I have like a general belief system. I guess it's fluid, but I'm just unsure how I feel about what past life memories really mean. I believe that I'm remembering past lives. I don't know what that means, though. I don't know if that means that like it was me or if I'm just tapping in because we're all connected. Right. Based on morphic resonance, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if they were specifically my past lives, but I do feel like I'm tapping into something that exists/existed, not just something it's making up.
Totally.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it really matters at the end of the day, because even if you could say that it was specifically this thing or that thing, how can it change anything? You know, like
now.
yeah. I mean, I think, yeah,
Yeah.
could be all of those things. You know, because
Yeah.
who knows?
Yeah, it could
We
be a
might have
combination.
everything wrong.
For sure.
So I know one of the things I wanted to bring up that we were talking briefly about in the Slack was Stranger Things.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And my feelings on Stranger Things is A, I enjoyed it.
Right.
B, the first season was amazing. The rest of it was good the same way a good Marvel movie is good.
Yeah, like enjoyable but forgettable.
Yeah,
I fell off after the first season.
a lot of people did.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like, we were mentioning, and this is not a big spoiler, but there's an M-shaped cave in there.
Okay.
Yes.
And that goes, because they're pulling from pop culture, especially the Fortiana pop culture all the way through it, the Montauk Experiment and all this type of stuff. But they get to that point, and Saxon, as you point out, it's kind of like morbid to use that because the guy disappeared.
He did, and you and I and Brennan did a show on that, I think, right? Was it Brennan?
Well, yeah, it was Brennan. It's one of the Missing People's show. We talked about it.
Yeah, and it's a sad story because you can go and look up. I think it's Marty Beach, I believe is the guy's name.
That sounds right.
And he kind of got this following online because he liked to do deep desert exploration out in Nevada on minimalist gear. That was kind of his thing. And it seemed like he was depressed and had a lot going on. He was like getting a divorce and his business was failing and all these things. And so I think they found a suicide note that had been left and then hidden, some stuff like that. But anyhow, he gained an online following and mentioned he'd found this M-shaped cave and it felt like it was vibrating, I think. And that every time he got close to it, he felt this incredibly intense fear that he couldn't overcome. And people really jumped on it and were egging him continuously to go back out to it. And he would go look for it and couldn't find it. And then eventually he went out to go look for it one last time and never came back. But they ended up finding his cell phone in a location that was opposite of the direction he said he was going to go. And, it looks like he basically took his life and didn't want anybody to find him and used the story of the cave as a cover. And some other people have gone trying to find it and things like that. And there's been the implication that the cave went into Area 51 and he got killed going into the cave because he passed into territory he wasn't supposed to and all of these things. But it's kind of when you make those references, and the show is like this too as a whole, it's morbid because it's a sad story of what happened to Marty, but also Marty was doing all these things trying to figure out how to make money and survive and was failing at all of them. And now his story has become lore that's getting mined for Hollywood, that people are making money off of. And it's one of those things that you wish that at a minimum he were around to get paid for it, or something, you know.
Well, but the thing is, it wasn't they didn't take Kenny's story. The only similarity there is that the cave was M-shaped.
Right.
And yes, I'm sure they're referencing that, but they're doing such a surface esoteric pop culture thing. They probably never thought about it. This is just a weird case of someone missing after finding an M-shaped cave that vibrated and all this other stuff. They're not looking at it deeper to, this guy probably killed himself and made this story up.
Yeah, exactly. And Stranger Things as a whole is based off the Montauk, lore. Right. And it's a pretty straightforward. The original pitch for the show was called Montauk.
It was.
That's right. Yeah.
And I have the pitch Bible for that, which is actually kind of fun. It really looks like an old Stephen King book.
Did it? Oh, cool.
Yeah.
What's a pitch Bible?
It's basically the book that they had, and probably they made a PowerPoint out of it that they gave to the execs at Netflix when they're trying to pitch it. So, it's got think of it's kind of like a press kit for a band,
Okay.
Yeah. So the pitch Bible, it's like basically got all that. It says like, synopsis, these are the main characters, this is the tone of it.
Interesting. I mean, I think also the first season caught that sort of 80s nostalgia dead on.
Yeah, for sure.
And the other seasons do too, but it had already been done. So it wasn't as strong after you get past the first season.
Yeah. I agree. It's they even make a Montauk reference in the final episode of the last season too.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil the scene because it's a small one, but it's in there. But they explicitly say Montauk.
Huh.
But yeah, it I don't know. The first season told the story.
Right.
And the following seasons were like, well, how do we just do more with this?
Exactly. It went insanely popular, and they went, well, now we have to write more,
Right. And then a bunch of other people, I'm sure, came on board, and now there's so many more voices that are now saying, oh, should do this, can't do this. That's one of the things that I'm sure amidst a myriad other things started to make it fall off.
Yeah. I mean, if they had a 5-season arc planned and they did that,
I think they did, but it's like it gets, I don't know. It's just my experience from working in that same industry. It just gets like, because of its success, the worst thing that can happen to it almost is because all these eyes are going to be on it. And so even if they had a 5-year plan, unless you're somebody like Vince Gilligan, unless you already have an established, like that's why Pluribus can be what it is and frustrate so many people, is because Vince Gilligan's got clout and he can do that. And the not Zucker brothers, what were they? Duffer brothers?
Yeah.
They had when they signed their first contract, they had no power. I just know that because that's how it always is. And so, basically what happened is that because even though they had maybe a 5-year plan for it, it ended up being changed because a bunch of suits got involved.
That could be. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it really did feel like the first season was a complete story to me.
Yeah, that would be my 2 cents. And from my experience working in the same industry, I feel like that's what happened. Or that's one of the things that happened, I would say.
What sucks is when you get those stories that have like a 5-year plan and they get canceled in season 3.
Yeah.
And you're like
Millennium.
Like the OA.
Yeah, or Dark
OA was
Matter.
one of my favorites.
What else?
I just said the OA was one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, the OA. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And there was stuff bubbling a little bit about another season somehow after her last series, but I haven't heard anything else.
The way that they produced that series is each episode was produced like it was its own separate movie, which is why it took so long for every season or both seasons the second season, I guess, to come out.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just took them forever to produce it.
Well, and there's a lot of shows that do that. Even this season of Stranger Things, most of the episodes were over an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting when you look at that, and you're like, basically each episode is a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And not every series does that, but a lot of them do, especially when they take a while to come out.
Yep.
I mean, I'd rather just have shorter episodes that come out more frequently, personally.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I was surprised that the OA it had such a cult following. I was part of it. I was surprised it just didn't have enough buzz to get picked up for another season.
Yeah, but the metrics they look at for this stuff is sometimes just stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, they canceled, Sci-Fi canceled Farscape, which was the highest rated show they ever had because it cost them too much money.
Yeah. I mean, having worked in, Adrian, I worked at what is now Paramount Skydance. Thank God I don't live there anymore. But yeah, so it was like, for me at least, and maybe it's just my cynical, I had a bad experience, even though I worked there for a while, left me with a really bad taste in my mouth. And a lot of that was because it's just like, it makes no sense creatively. Nobody cares about creativity anymore.
No.
All it comes down to is like people in suits making decisions based upon some metric or some trend that they think is going to, engage a new audience. So my cynicism always runs to thinking that's the thing that ruined it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, of course, that makes sense. I just, You know.
And I don't see the OA as being a series that probably cost them a ton of money, but it probably didn't get the ratings that was worth the money it was costing them.
Yeah.
You know, because Sci-Fi, when Sci-Fi canceled Farscape, they were basically going with reality shows because reality shows are cheap as hell to make, and they're just dumb entertainment that lots of people will watch.
No, that's exactly right. Yes, exactly right.
Rather than Farscape, which was a very expensive production. But I mean, the fans, at least for that one, were able to get a finisher to the series with a movie, or a 2-part movie. I can't remember what it was now. It's been too long. I mean, Babylon 5 would have been better than it already was had Straczynski not had to fight for every of the 5 seasons he did. You know, he rushed everything to a close at the end of season 4 and then got renewed.
Yeah.
It's like,
I also shows that are just like short and intended to be short. Like, did you guys see Devs on Hulu?
no.
Yeah.
One season.
Yeah, it's on my list.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I really like that. Yeah, Alex Garland. It was great.
Who's the girl in the OA?
Britt
I
Marling.
like everything she's been in. What's her name?
Britt Marling.
Britt Marling.
Yeah, Britt Marling. She did that Another Earth too. I don't know if you guys.
Yeah,
Another
and
Earth
Sound
is
of my
amazing.
was it Sound of My Voice, I think.
Yep, Sound of
The
My
other
Voice.
one about like the cult.
Yep.
Oh, yep.
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 Yeah.
There's one. There's like, man, how many movies has she done? She also did A Murder at the End of the World, which was the last series she did, which was brilliant.
Yep. Yep.
And that was one season. So clearly they learned. Don't even worry about it, just do one season.
Yeah. Just make it really good.
Because where the OA was going was a whole nother level of how are they going to do this, and then we never found out.
Yeah.
But I mean, this stuff all borrows from like the base level of pop culture, I guess was what I was we're going for with the Stranger Things. Like it's not going into the deep esoteric stuff, and it's not considering, it's like, oh, the M cave, the M-shaped cave is a thing. Yeah, we'll use that. That we'll just make the cave M-shaped. It has nothing to do with Kenny Veach or anything else. It was Kenny Veach, I think.
I think that's right. Yeah.
And
humans love things that are familiar, so that makes sense.
Right, exactly. I don't know. It is what it is.
Well, but to your point on that, like the surface level, that's sort of like the Joe Rogan level of conspiracy theory, right? That sort of permeated a lot of pop culture. So I guess it's not just the Stranger Things that's guilty of it, but it's a lot of like, taking the whatever conspiracy at the highest level without looking any deeper.
Right.
And just peddling it as like a real thing. And then when you go look at it, you're like, oh, this is Richard Doty. Like, this stuff is BS.
Yeah.
But nobody knows that because they don't look any deeper.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's how. I think you have to dumb stuff down to make it mainstream. I think that's how that happens, so that the masses can it. Like, who's the guy that Dan? What's his name? He's about to. I think he just published a book on consciousness, and it's definitely like fiction, and it's going to be very surfacey. It's not going to like delve into it, but it's going to, because he's such a popular author, it's going to make that subject blow up even more for the masses.
Oh, is it Dan Brown? Yeah. Okay. I didn't know he did that.
Yeah.
Is that his latest?
A podcast where he was talking about
He's the guy that did the Da Vinci Code, which,
exactly.
was based on something, and then, he kind of dumbed it down. Yeah.
Yep. So he's about to do the same thing with consciousness, sort of, and like metaphysics and stuff by publishing a novel about it. But it's still going to get more people thinking about it, but not necessarily in accurate ways, maybe. You know what I mean?
Is that his latest book?
Totally.
Sorry, I didn't mean to step on you, Chris.
Oh, no, I was just agreeing. I was agreeing because I see so much of that, and it frustrates me.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I was listening to something today on simulation theory, and the guy that was being interviewed was I think it was the guy that was looking at the lasers on the wall while he was doing psychedelics and seeing code in it.
Oh, nice.
But he was kind of posing this thought of like, we've kind of watered the word down to the point where when you say simulation theory, everybody hears like, oh, we're just programs in a computer.
Yeah.
And he goes, but he's like, that's one way to talk about it. But you can also talk about it like, well, if we're consciousnesses and we're experiencing this reality that has a set of rules given to it, like physics and what have you, like, is that not just a different simulation?
Yeah, I think the computer thing is more of like an analogy, so we can understand it through that lens.
Right.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
right, but I think a lot of people have mistaken the analogy for, the real thing, essentially.
Yes.
Right.
Well, if you look at like we were talking before about groupthink, like I'm not trying to get political or religious, but like just as an example, like we live in a country where a lot of people take a book very literally, where a lot of people who follow the same book in other countries take it metaphorically. So it's like we're living in a culture that takes a lot of things very literally.
True.
Yes.
True.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally.
And before we get away from the media stuff, there's Jason Pargin put up he puts up so many videos. It's ridiculous. I have no idea how he manages to put up so many videos. But he was talking about both Star Wars and The Simpsons. And he said, like, what happened to The Simpsons? Why aren't The Simpsons as good as when they started? Because, I mean, it's like, what, the longest running show at this point?
Yep.
Yeah, I think so.
Something like that. It's got some sort of,
Definitely the longest running animated show.
Animated, yeah.
But he said, the people who are writing The Simpsons today are people who grew up on The Simpsons.
Yep.
And the people who wrote The Simpsons initially were into all kinds of weird, nerdy stuff.
Yeah.
That they brought into The Simpsons, which is what made it great. But now it's basically like it's feeding off itself. It's feeding off its own past. And he's
a good
like,
way to put it. Totally.
Yeah, and he's like, Star Wars is kind of the same way. Star Wars is now being written by Star Wars fans rather than being come up with, like other influences coming in. It's already there. They're just kind of modifying it and twisting it here and there rather than having other influences come in and make it something new and different.
So it's getting watered down instead of being.
No, go ahead, Adrian.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just said it was getting watered down rather than being more enriched,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's like, I mean, part of me feels like that move, and there is some, people sort of are talking about this, like through postmodernism in terms of the idea of pastiche, for a while. But I feel like it's more like some symptom of, Time Wave Zero and Terrence, the
ultimate novelty.
Yeah, the ultimate novelty, and Terrence McKenna, or like you talk about peak novelty, but maybe peak novelty, or maybe it could be both of these things, but maybe it isn't just things getting super weird. It's like the end of novelty. So now there's like nothing that is truly new, and we're really recycling stuff,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, we've been doing that for a while.
That's true. We have been doing that for a while. So maybe, that's why.
And that's capitalism, because it's like, oh, this movie made money, let's do another one.
Yeah.
But this movie's really original and different. Well, that's not a known quantity. We're going to do a sequel instead, or a remake instead.
And that's completely the reason how they are making the decisions, at these, companies that are producing stuff. Absolutely.
So when something comes through and is actually genuinely good, it's kind of surprising.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It happens.
I think, and I think we even don't give new things a chance at this point too, because it's not familiar, which is awful.
Yeah. Well, look at all the nostalgia for like the reboots of all the 90s TV shows that are going on.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that there certainly was nostalgia going on like in the 80s for the 50s, or I'm sorry, the 70s for the 50s. You get like All in the Family and Happy Days and stuff like that. But, you get what's all of these reboots of things, the superhero movies are bringing back all the old superheroes from other franchises. It's like this big nostalgia fest. But Malcolm in the Middle's got rebooted. It's coming back, like what?
What is?
Malcolm in the Middle. Remember that 90s sitcom?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
What were you going to say, Adrian?
Oh, I don't like any of the remakes. I just go back when I'm nostalgic. I go back and watch the originals. Like that market doesn't work for me.
No, it's not the same. You can't go back home.
Well,
I totally am with you on that.
so there are some things that should be remade, like The Thing from Outer Space that got remade as The Thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like you're right. And I feel like that's a very particular type of remake that, came from the movie industry and that has some, validity to it. Yes, you're right.
Because there are some things that weren't, like, oh, this could have been better if, and then someone goes, well, I'm going to remake it with a better budget, better effects, better whatever, because we
Or
can.
a modern retelling of it,
Right,
take the story and, update it. Sure.
But when you're basically doing the same thing, and the original, like remaking The Thing, when they did the prequel, I thought it was a remake. I'm like, why would you remake this? This is a perfect movie. It doesn't need to be remade. And then it's like, oh, it's a prequel. All right, that's fine.
Right. Yeah, and I almost wonder, like, I don't know what the original The Thing from Outer Space, like, what regard it was held in before.
I don't think people really cared, honestly. It's
kind of
not
a
that good.
B-movie. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's almost one of those things where I feel like, it just speaks to what you just said, because it was like, oh, this could have been better because nobody cared about it, so it wasn't really, I don't know, I don't want to say call it dipping into the same well, but people didn't have nostalgia for the original.
Right, yes, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Well, similarly, in just to talk for a second about superhero movies, that was kind of the reason why the whole first Iron Man movie got made, that started this thing that would change movies, for at least a few decades, because nobody cared about Iron Man. It's like people did, but it wasn't like a Superman or a Spider-Man, that it'd be like, if I'm going to do something on, you pick some like random person that most popular, non-comics fans have not heard of before. And, sometimes it's when you do that something interesting happens. I don't know. But yeah.
No, you're right. I mean, Iron Man, you and I probably read Iron Man in the 80s and 90s, but he was a C-tier character, and people are going to like try and kill me for saying that now. But at the time, like, his title was around for a while, but he was never anybody that was like, oh gosh, like Iron Man's one of the big three of Marvel Comics or anything. Like he wasn't in that discussion. He was a rich guy that showed up now and then, and that was about it. And so it gave them a lot of freedom when they made the movie to just like have fun. And, RDJ got to define that character far more like interestingly than the character in the comic was. In the 80s, they drew him like Tom Selleck with a bit of a mullet. And, I always thought that was fascinating to me.
The only interesting thing about the character was that he was struggled with alcoholism, which was a thing they had. And that was like the one defining thing for Iron Man. Anyway, sorry, that's way too much super nerd stuff. You've just lost half your audience. Sorry, everybody.
So there's this article that came out too about, and I know Saxon, you had some comments about this, the Pentagon disinformation that fueled America's UFO mythology, which is basically the Pentagon admitting that some UFO sightings were things like top secret craft.
Yeah.
And this is old news to people like us. But, MSN is writes a whole article about how, oh, look, some of these were actually, it's basically saying, yeah, people were seeing stuff, but it was just test craft. And it's like, and sometimes that's true, but that still doesn't rule out the anomalous cases.
Right.
And they say they tried to propagate UFO mythology all the way back to the 1950s. Again, we knew this. This is,
right.
So much of this stuff has already come out. And, you're talking about Doty and that whole group. Who was the guy who came out at the UFO conference and...
for MUFON, right?
Yeah, it said, this stuff is all disinformation.
Oh my gosh. I I can't
Cooper?
remember his name.
No, it wasn't Cooper.
No.
But
I can picture him in his suit behind the podium with the big poofy hair.
But he came out and basically said, yeah, this is a lot of the stories you're being fed are all disinfo, and people were like ready to riot.
Yeah.
Because they were sure he was wrong because they believed it so strongly.
Oh, Bill Moore.
There we go.
Yeah, why am I saying Bill Cooper? Sorry, yeah. For some reason, even though they're completely different human beings, I don't know why I conflate them. Well, Bill, but
Yeah. I'm always curious about these things too, because it's, I don't know, when we were talking about it, like, I started thinking about like different kinds of like psyops and things and how do they get out of control. And, the UFO thing definitely as cover for testing aircraft, definitely got outside of the control of the people that started that, or pushed it, I guess would be the better way to say it, because there's always been UFOs. There's always been things we can't identify.
Right.
But I don't know. I think it almost seems like a virus that's infected a lot of things. It's hard to explain. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with that, but it's something in my head I've been thinking about a lot.
I hear that. Yeah, no, keep thinking about that. That might yield something interesting.
One of the paragraphs here says, the office found that seemingly inexplicable events weren't so strange after all. In one, a 2015 video appeared to show a spherical object buzzing past a jet fighter at almost impossible speeds. Oh my gosh, dude, the pilot can be heard saying in the video, laughing. But later, investigators determined there was nothing much to see. Whatever the object was, the camera angle and relative speed of the jet had made it appear to be going much faster than it was. And yeah, you're going to find stuff like that, but also they didn't explain what the thing was.
Right.
Another one here says, where's this one start? So it's talking about this guy, Kirkpatrick, who ran this group looking at this stuff. Pursued his investigation, he started to uncover a haul of mirrors within the Pentagon, cloaked in official and non-official cover. On one level, the secrecy was understandable. The U.S., after all, had been locked in an existential battle with the Soviet Union for decades, each side determined to win the upper hand in a race for ever more exotic weapons. But Kirkpatrick soon discovered that some of the obsession with secrecy verged on the farcical. A former Air Force officer was visibly terrified when he told Kirkpatrick's investigators that he had been briefed on a secret alien project decades earlier and was warned if he ever repeated the secret, he could be jailed or executed. The claim would be repeated to investigators by another man who had never spoken of the matter, even with their spouses. It turns out the witnesses had been the victims of a bizarre hazing ritual.
Oh, wow.
And this is something Walter Bosley talked about on, I don't remember if it was a show or a Patreon segment, where when he was, what did he work for? Was it FBI?
He says it's, oh God, I'm forgetting the acronym. FOCIA. It's not it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well,
do you know what you guys know what I'm talking? This
yes.
is again my brain recall. Yeah.
Whatever government group it was, he said at some point he was pulled aside and told about like these alien artifacts they found under the ice in Antarctica. And he was like, wow, this is really interesting. And then as he thought about it, he went, are they telling me this to see if I'll talk about it?
Right. Well, that's that's an old intelligence trick, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And you get so much of that stuff out there where it's like, oh, yeah, someone in the government. I mean, look at all the disclosure stuff is all someone told me. And it's like, yep, I'm sure they did,
Right. So one of my buddies that was in the Air Force told a story about what they would do to haze like new guys when they were going on deployment. And I forget how this worked together, but basically you would have people on something that was like an AWACS, that's got the saucer shape on the back. That's the radar dish. And they would make the new guys like cover their ears and close their eyes because the AWACS was going to launch off of the plane, and they weren't supposed to know that that's what was happening, but there was an emergency and they had to, deploy it to go do something. And, I don't know if they kept up the act for it to come back and redock before they landed, or if that was just they all laughed about it, 20 minutes later.
Yeah.
But yeah, they would convince all the guys that were new that, oh, yeah, actually, this thing's a UFO or a flying saucer. And this is actually the launch vehicle for it.
There's so much stuff like that out there. It's so hard to read through the chaff and the nonsense to find what the truly anomalous stuff is. Let's see.
AFOSI, Air Force Office of Special Investigation.
Okay.
That's, word salad. Sorry.
That is word salad.
So there was an article here I saved that says archaeological breakthrough contradicts the timeline of human civilization. I would think that our timeline of human civilization is just a mess at this point anyway. I mean, it's just probably almost completely wrong.
Yeah.
But it says the relics point toward an advanced method of deep ocean fishing, leading the study authors to hypothesize that the ancient seafarers constructed boats from organic materials and held them together with plant-based ropes. The rope technology was then adapted for fishing. While the discovery of fossils and ancient tools on a remote island chains has been cited as proof of early modern humans crossed open oceans, the study's authors challenged the popular notion that these journeys were accidental. Rather than drifting helplessly on bamboo rafts, the researchers argue these prehistoric travelers were highly skilled navigators, equipped with the knowledge, planning, and seafaring technology needed to cross deep waters and reach distant shores. The identification of boat-building materials through direct or indirect evidence is vital in understanding movements across and within island environments, the authors wrote in the study. The presence of such advanced maritime technology in prehistoric ISEA highlights the ingenuity of early Philippine people and their neighbors. The author said in a statement from the university, whose boat-building knowledge likely made the region a center for technological innovations tens of thousands of years ago and laid the foundations for the maritime tradition that still thrive in the region today.
Totally. I believe it.
Oh, yeah, so do I.
Sure.
And
Thor Heyerdahl's right.
Aren't there out of place artifacts found all over the place that are in sediment that's too old for whatever the piece might be?
So there's stuff in coal veins in particular that would have to be millions of years old. That is a chain or, something like that. That's a basic tool that we know we didn't come up with until recently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've always thought that, I don't know, we have these, if you look at the geological record, we have these huge global events where most of the crust of the earth gets disrupted. And I would imagine that, it would be easy for most things to get completely lost.
Yes.
Nothing's going to last that long, but every once in a while, there's going to be a little piece of something.
Yep.
Yeah. And people, and you're absolutely right. And yet still science pushes back against anything that, it's individually you can get certain people who are working in geology or, something like that to admit, but it's because that lines with the biblical flood myth, which it doesn't mean that the Bible's right. It just means that there's an account in there that is history of a flood happening, but I feel like there still is this pushback because of that, but I completely agree with you. Yeah.
Original point that we were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just this pushback of what we've been told or this, and I think a lot of that sort of group think not wanting the reality that we've built to break, is tied to survival and tied to tribalism and tied to a belief system, being part of survival. I think that's inherent in our DNA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said. Yep.
If you look at the Antikythera device, this is something that science can't dispute. That is an advanced computer. not electronic, obviously, but the problem with it is not only is there no timeline for why this thing exists, but it couldn't have been the first one.
Yeah.
And we've only found
Right.
one.
Yeah.
So where are all the ones leading up to it? How much of the past do we really just not have a clue about?
Right.
So
Right,
much.
yeah.
Like almost all of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just as you were saying earlier too, Adrian, like, with upheaval and things like that, and like artifacts don't last a long time. Everything we find is like winning the lottery.
Mm-hmm.
And then we treat it like it's out of place or it shouldn't exist because it's only one of the thing, as opposed to, if something survived that long, wouldn't it mean that maybe it was more prevalent?
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
So there's a lot of stuff about that is just incredibly frustrating, but
A 3,500-year-old pendant, and it's tiny. I use it as a pendant, but the only reason that I have it is because there were so many of them, like this exact same thing.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's a carnelian fly from ancient Egypt.
Oh,
That's
wow.
awesome. Wow. Super
really
cool.
cool.
But yeah, I mean, there's so much they talk about. I was just reading, someone hopefully I can get on the show. I don't know how accessible he is, but Ev Cochran. I've been reading his book on the turquoise sun, which I think it was last year we did I can't remember the name of the book, but talking about the polar configuration with Saturn.
Right.
As
Saturn
our
myth?
original
Or,
sun.
was that it? Something like that?
What was it?
Saturn myth? No, I'm
Yeah.
thinking of another one. Yeah, was that it?
That might have been it. Godstar,
Godstar. Okay.
which I've not finished reading. And he wrote 3 other books, but of course he had passed away, so I couldn't have him on. But Ev Cochran is still alive. So once I get done with this book, I'm going to contact him because it's fascinating. I mean, he's looking across cultures at descriptions of the sun that do not match descriptions of the sun today.
Mm-hmm.
And they're describing the light as turquoise.
Yeah.
Mm.
So it's
Is
like,
it that language was different? And because I know that, like, I'm trying to remember where I was learning about this. I was in college a few years ago, so it could have been then. But I was learning about how in a lot of older and ancient literature, like they talk about the seas being the color of wine, for example. I think like in the Iliad.
Wine dark sea. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they maybe use different like color shows up in literature in a certain order. Red shows up first for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys remember that movie, The Giver, but it's like it shows up in that movie in the same pattern that it shows up in literature. They did that on purpose. And so even though maybe we were seeing it without having language to describe the colors, we weren't actually able to see them or differentiate. And that carries through to all types of stuff. Like when colonization and civilization takes over, like native people, and the language is taken away, the way that we're able to, when we're stripped from our cultures or original cultures, the way that we're able to actually conceptualize reality changes without the language. So when we didn't have the names for colors, we weren't actually seeing them the same way that we see them now, which is wild.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, nothing we're seeing is actually what it is. It's all vibration.
For sure.
But in the case of the turquoise sun, you have multiple cultures around the world, most major ancient cultures, describing the sun the same way, describing it as the same color, describing it moving through the sky in a much different way than it does today. And I'm only maybe a quarter of the way through this book, and there's definitely something there that we don't understand. Like,
I wonder if the atmosphere was that different, that the sunlight cutting through it would produce a different color.
Well, the supposition here becomes that Saturn was our original star.
Okay.
And we moved into the solar system we're in now, and this relies on elements of the electric universe, where as we moved into it, Saturn's energy went to our current sun, and Saturn moved further away because it now was, as everything rearranged itself.
Okay.
Which, if any aspect of that is true, is astonishing and amazing that we're still here.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
So, but I want to have him on to talk about all this stuff because I'm definitely not an expert, and this book is fascinating. And he's done a bunch of videos for the Thunderbolts channel as well.
Oh, cool.
So hopefully he'll be accessible enough to come on the show. I can get, message him and get him to come on the show and talk about this stuff. Because it's interesting. And because we just assume that if they're talking about the sun, it's the same sun, because why would we think there was ever another one? But they're telling us in these records, things have changed.
And does he say how long ago that was?
Not yet.
Okay.
There's a lot of, the when we did the Godstar book, it seems like, no, this can't be. But then when you look at all the evidence, it's like, okay, there's at least something here that's unexplained. But it's in antiquity. It's pre-historical record is the problem.
Okay.
Right.
And at that point, without a time machine, it's going to be very hard to figure out. So these guys are pulling from mythology and basically doing comparative mythology.
Okay.
And the way the sun is displayed is different. Like there are certain symbols that you see from the sun in these ancient records that, again, are cross-culture.
What is the name of this book again?
Something with a turquoise sun.
And you said his last name is Hoffman? I want to read this.
Cochran.
Cochran. Okay.
Ev Cochran. I will tell you the name of the book because I should know that. Yeah, MaverickScience.com is his website.
MaverickScience.com?
Yep.
Okay,
and,
cool.
It's not even his most recent book. His most recent book is Egypt Under the Stars. The Case of the Turquoise Sun that came out in 2024.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
So he says, we hold these truths to be self-evident. First, gods were planets, pure and simple. Myths of creation are best understood as eyewitness accounts describing singular cataclysmic events involving the respective planets moving in close proximity to Earth. The earliest cosmogenic myths of Mesopotamia, Egypt, Vedic India, and the Mesoamerica encode the birth of the turquoise sun, a sun which is clearly distinguishable from the present sun. The Queen of Heaven, referenced in the Old Testament and countless other ancient traditions around the globe, is to be identified with the planet Venus. The warrior hero, represented by such familiar figures as Hercules, Gilgamesh, Samson, and Odysseus, is to be identified with the planet Mars. The global myth of Hieros Gamos, most familiar in Homer's account of the torrid love affair between Aphrodite and Ares, describes a close conjunction marriage between Venus and Mars. The origin of the primary institutions of human civilization, religion, drama, dance, music, philosophy, monumental architecture, New Year's ritual, marriage, sports, etc., is firmly rooted in and ultimately inseparable from the catastrophic events involving the respective planets. The history of the solar system, as recounted in modern textbooks, is utterly wrong-headed and divorced from reality. And with that, we're going to take a quick break. Quick mid-show break here. Contact info is very simple. www.wheredidtheroadgo.com. If you go there, you can find, everything Where Did the Road Go related, including a link tree that will take you to all of my other stuff, including my music show, The Last Exit for the Lost. You can become a patron for only $3 a month. It's always ever been $3 a month, and you get tons of extra content, commercial-free, a couple of weeks early. It's an immense amount of stuff for under $1 a week, and it helps out the show immensely. All our social media is connected there as well, so anything you could want, including all the shows all the way back to the first one, all available there. As for a recommendation, I don't think I have one for this week, so I'm gonna. 36 Dingo was nice enough to send me a list of the ones I've put up in the last year or two. So I'm gonna go over a few of these in case anyone missed them. Small Town Horror Podcast, very interesting story. It's not real. I don't remember if it was an actual horror story or more of a thriller, but well worth listening to. As well as Old Gods of Appalachia, another podcast that is very dark and folklorish. Let's see. We're going to go for other podcasts. The Who Killed JFK cast with the late Rob Reiner and Soledad O'Brien is very, very good. It's a must listen, honestly, if you're at all interested in JFK's assassination. Magmel, short Lovecraftian horror sci-fi. Alice Isn't Dead, which is by the people who did Welcome to Night Vale. And that's actually, that has something new coming out. I forget what it is. I think it's a side story. Giannis Descending. Again, very sci-fi, horror, very Lovecraftian. And that is done by the people who did Wolf 359, I believe. So yeah, if you haven't checked any of those out, those are all excellent podcasts to listen to. And now back to this one. Yeah, so that's what I read before we took the break. That's Ev Cochran, E.V. Cochran, Cochrane, or just go to maverickscience.com. So, like I said, I'm gonna contact him, see if he'll come on. Yeah, so the book is The Case for the Turquoise Sun, A Natural History of Creation. He also has one called The Many Faces of Venus and Star Effer. What? Yep, that's what it's called. The catastrophic, I can't read that, conjunction of Venus and Mars.
Nice.
What were you going to say, Saxon?
I was going to say, before you said Star Effer, and my brain got distracted. I was thinking about, the other thing that I kind of wonder about with the, institutions sort of never allowing outside concepts to come in or things that, challenge their narrative is there seems to be a lot of effort to basically take out any type of catastrophe or cataclysm.
Yes.
And I always wonder if that's just, some type of embedded fear or something like that, because people don't want to admit that, all of this is fragile.
Right.
And there are things that could happen that are so far beyond our control that, there's absolutely nothing you could do except watch it happen.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly it. We like gradualism. We do not like catastrophism. So when Velikovsky first wrote his book talking about Venus, and some of what Cochran is talking about comes from Velikovsky. Velikovsky was the first one to suggest Venus was a comet that came close to Mars, destroyed Mars, which is what you're seeing on the surface of Mars, was the close proximity of Venus and this electrical discharge, and eventually settled into the path it is now. And that was in 1950. And I mean, the scientific community went crazy attacking Velikovsky, especially Carl Sagan. And
oh wow,
when right before I started doing the show, Laird Scranton had written a book about modern science versus Velikovsky. And I had finished Velikovsky's book, and I went, man, has someone written a book checking some of his predictions? Because I'm sure we know a lot more now than we did in 1950. And I looked it up, and there's Laird Scranton's book, which I think is how I found Laird in the first place. I got that book and literally read it cover to cover the minute I got it, and was amazed by the fact that most modern science proves Velikovsky. Every prediction Velikovsky made about Venus turned out to be true. Every prediction that modern science in 1950 made about Venus turned out to be wrong. However, they will still not accept that there could be anything to Velikovsky's theory, because that implies that a planet burst into our system, our solar system at such a point, disrupted everything, and has already settled into a path of its own, which they have no way of accounting for under standard cosmology.
Right.
But it was just character assassination to him. Even Einstein read his book and was like, "This is really interesting," but that didn't matter. He was not a cosmologist, and he was taking stuff from the Bible and from other ancient records, which were basically considered religious documents, and making a case that, hey, Venus wasn't always the Venus we know.
Right.
But that got him far.
Can't come around here with new ideas.
Yeah. You're not allowed to have new ideas or new ways to look at it. We already know all the answers, and rocks don't fall from the sky.
Yeah.
But it is. I think it's a fear that we don't have control over these things, that this stuff could come out of nowhere.
Yeah, for sure.
Velikovsky's idea was that Venus came out of Jupiter, that a large object hit Jupiter, that it collided with it, and that's the red spot on Jupiter is still the remnants of Venus being ejected from it.
Yeah.
And that it was part of Jupiter's core because this object was so big it hit and knocked part of the core out. And one of the things he said is if that's true, you're going to see the same gases in the atmosphere of Venus that you do in Jupiter, and that is exactly what we see. Not to mention that Venus has a cometary tail, and that tail is magnetically connected to Earth. You can't see it with the naked eye, but they've picked it up, and they're like, what the hell? Venus has a tail. And why is it pointed toward Earth? Which is exactly what Velikovsky said they would find. He also said being new, it would be basically a undamaged surface, and it would be very, very hot. In 1950, they said Venus was going to be very, very frigid because of all the cloud cover, and probably pot-marked with all kinds of, asteroid impacts and all this other stuff. And then when they got there and went, oh, this is really smooth with almost no meteor or asteroid stuff, they went, must be constant volcanic activity just rewriting the surface. And maybe it is, but that wasn't what you predicted, and it is what Velikovsky predicted.
Right.
Because if it's young, it's going to be a lot, smoother than objects like the moon.
Yeah.
And then you have the electric universe challenge of what we see on the moon being not so much meteor collisions, but electrical discharges.
Yeah.
And the same with
Which
Mars.
I'm fascinated by that because it was like lightning going between the planets and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the surviving through that and then trying to explain that and record it would be, I mean, how else could you not make it sound like God's fighting? I don't know.
And maybe you thought it was God's fighting.
Right? Yeah. I mean, I don't know how else you would process that.
Again, there was, I can't remember his name, but there's a plasma physicist who, when he looked at, so the electric universe, the scientists who work on this stuff collected all these, petroglyphs that are plasma discharges that we have seen in the lab. And there's I want to say 28 or 32 variations or something like that of plasma discharge. And in the ancient petroglyphs, you see all but 4 of them. And the 4 that you don't see, they said if you saw these things in the sky, if discharged from planet to planet or something, you would be dead.
Right.
So those are the only ones missing. So that's saying okay, what are they recording here? Because, again, this is something you're seeing around the world.
Yeah.
Right.
And they are literally exactly what you see in plasma discharges.
Right.
So he was like, okay, there's something to this. How were they seeing these giant plasma discharges? There's something happened. And maybe it was solar. Maybe it could have been the sun hitting us with stuff, a mini nova or something.
Well, yeah, mini nova, solar flare. I mean, I don't know. The amount of things that we're susceptible to that go on around us that we just, kind of stick our head in the sand about is pretty shocking.
That's an understatement.
Yes. Meanwhile, I got to pay taxes.
Right. Yeah. Unless we get hit with a major solar flare, then we won't have to worry about it.
Let's say we won't have to pay taxes for a while, at least.
Right.
I mean, eventually some king will rise up and you'll have to pay, to him something for.
I was about to say there'll just be something else.
But, I think all that stuff is interesting. I mean, the stuff we see on Mars is interesting. Every once in a while they let out something what was the article I pulled about Mars? Mars may hide water carved caves that once sheltered alien life. And it's I'd be shocked if there wasn't life at one point on Mars.
Yeah. Well, and there's of course, it's almost a apocryphal story. I don't know, where the guy is asking about the photos on Mars, and the guy's like, "Oh, you mean the city on Mars?" or something like that. And they're talking about the remnants of the radiation there that only comes from nuclear weapons.
Oh yeah. That's interesting too. What is it, xenon something?
Yes. Yeah.
And the only place we know that it comes from is the aftermath of a nuclear weapon. It doesn't mean it's the only way it could exist, but it's the only place we've ever seen it.
Right.
So aftermath of nuclear explosion and Mars.
Yeah.
And I believe he was asked if it could have been caused by a plasma discharge, and he said no.
Interesting.
So who knows what happened to there? I mean, Mars is really weird. The moon is really weird too.
Yes.
I mean, we've talked about that plenty, about the moon potentially not being what it looks like.
Aren't there like ancient Hindu scriptures that talk about ancient like nuclear wars, celestial sort of things happening?
Yep. Mahabharata and is it the Vedas, Chris?
Yeah. I mean, Puranas, not the Vedas necessarily. No, it's the Mahabharata and the, they do. But again, it's one of those things that I think you have to, like, it's not explicit enough to be where you can like say, all right, it was a nuclear bomb or something like that. Or when they talk about the Vimanas as sort of flying machines, I feel like, a lot of people, they think of them in terms of airplanes or spaceships, but I think it, might be technology that we didn't understand at all, more like Edgar Casey, Atlantis flying ships that are controlled by a giant crystal or something like that.
Aren't they described fairly explicitly? Obviously not well enough for us to reconstruct them, but
they are. I mean, they're described enough to, like where it's like, destructive beams and rays coming from things and, flying in carriages or ships. Oh yeah, absolutely, for sure.
It seems like you're describing physical things and not making
right.
them.
Yeah. No. These, and they totally are not describing like metaphorical things.
Sure.
It's just the specificity of technology that people jump to immediately. I'm always like, that's not quite there, but absolutely. No, very much so. And all of that, even thinking about quantum physics, going back to the Vedas, which are the oldest that are of record. You're talking about things that are essentially talking about the atom and, like early quantum physics, same types of concepts. So yeah, 100%.
I believe too, they found there was one or two cities in India or Pakistan that were found that had high levels of radiation.
Yep.
Yeah, remember
and in
that.
Africa. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think it's also might be near Mohenjo-daro.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was unexplained, but again, it doesn't prove that they had nuclear weapons, but the possibility is definitely there.
Yep.
Because one of the things they talk about in the Mahabharata are the after effects of this powerful weapon,
Yes.
which
People got sick, right?
yeah,
Yep,
but
exactly. like some radiation poisoning. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
like to a T describing radiation poisoning. So yeah, I mean, maybe we did have them at one point, and maybe it was a different weapon that had similar effects. Who knows?
For sure.
And again, looking at the possibility of plasma discharges, whether from other planets or from the sun, that could be seen as a weapon and would create a lot of the same effects because these things will release radiation. It's just we have no way of knowing because so little is preserved of the past.
Well, and I feel like the people of the time were obviously viewing things through their own language and cultural lens, and
Yes.
that's how they recorded it. And it's been translated so many times, and now we're looking at it through our language and cultural lens. And so it's super convoluted.
Yeah, unfortunately.
100%.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so much of this stuff, like you look at oral traditions, and there's a lot of interesting stuff there. And science as a whole has generally been distrustful of oral traditions. But when they've done studies on how accurate are oral traditions, it turns out they're very accurate.
Well, they're sometimes more accurate than when we're writing things down.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But they're also, to be remembered, they're turned into things like mythology. But they have all that, all this information embedded in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that actually recently, how ironic that is, that we view it through this lens, that it's so much less accurate, and it tends to be longer lasting and more accurate in its metaphorical stages.
Yeah. Because you have, there's certain numbers for, like, universal numbers for cosmology and stuff like that, and all that stuff is embedded. I mean, that's the whole argument in Hamlet's Mill, the book Hamlet's Mill, that these sacred numbers are embedded in most mythologies around the world. And you have the sacred architecture as well.
Yep. Yeah, it repeats everywhere.
Yeah. So there's knowledge there that was probably being used without even realizing it was being used at some point.
Because it was just part of the way of life and how they recorded things and did things.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I don't know how we ever figure this stuff out unless we have build a machine that can view the past.
Yeah, I don't
like the chronovisor.
I think we just get to speculate for fun,
I mean, because even if someone was like, no, I can view the past, like if they could view recent past and we can prove they were accurate, that still doesn't mean that they can view the distant past and be accurate.
But even if they view it, we're going to interpret it through our lens.
Yes,
still.
well.
We don't have the understanding that the ancient people did. We don't have any way to truly understand, even if we could see it right now in front of us.
That is very
Totally.
true. And we underestimate ancient people as well.
Oh, for sure. Like astronomically. It's absurd that we think that we know so much more than they would have, you know?
And also going back to the giants thing, like you have people who will study Native Americans or Aboriginal people and be like, well, these people built these mounds, and by saying that it was something, another culture, that's racist. And then you ask the Aboriginal people and they go, oh, giants built them.
Right.
Yeah. That's part of their history.
It's like, why are you not going with what they said if you're saying that we should listen to them? Oh, because they're saying something you don't agree with. All right, I see how this works.
Right, yeah.
I mean, Stonehenge was supposedly built by giants.
I mean, if you look at Stonehenge, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and they found, where did I see that? They just found something in Stonehenge. They found a whole bunch of stuff around Stonehenge that has been buried.
Okay.
In the Glastonbury Plain there?
Yeah, I believe so. I'm looking to see if I have
cool.
it.
I think I saw an article about that not that long ago. I don't remember the details, though.
Yeah, I don't either, and I'm looking through the Instapaper. I used to use Pocket, and then they discontinued Pocket, so I don't know. Well, I have to use the right letters. WTO does not get me Stonehenge. Nothing. Okay, I don't know where I had it, but yeah, it was. Oh, maybe I have to hit all articles. They're just constantly finding more stuff. Yeah, I don't know where it is. More stuff underground with using this new technology that we have.
Yep.
Finding stuff in the jungle. Now they're finding all this stuff underwater.
Yeah. They just found the like labyrinth maze underneath Cusco in Peru.
Really?
Oh.
Really?
Like finally for like the thing that was speculated about, they found it. Yeah.
I did not know that.
Wow.
So what is the maze supposed to be?
I just remembered I skimmed by this. Well, it's not a maze in the sense of like it is not meant to be a maze, but they don't know where it goes. There's tunnels. Tunnels. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's the thing. They initially throw out, oh yeah, all pyramids are tombs. It's like, actually, no, almost no pyramids are tombs,
Yeah.
And they really stick with that one.
Yeah.
It's wild. And it doesn't matter how obvious it becomes that it's not correct. They dig their heels in.
Yep.
Oh, completely. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
in
Egypt, I'm sorry, go ahead, Troy.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, in Egypt, like the military and the government control all the archaeology that goes on because it's a tourism draw. And there's also a lot of national identity tied into it. So they won't let things exist outside of the established narrative that they have too. That kind of stuff is just so interesting. It's like frustrating because then you would think, well, if you discovered something neat, like, oh my gosh, these things weren't tombs at all. They were made to, harvest energy or something like that. It'd be like, oh, this is awesome. We should tell everybody about this so they come see it,
Yeah.
But
well, that's the thing. And when you look at the dating of the Sphinx, Robert Schoch proving that this has to be older than you think it is, and they got seriously angry with him.
Yeah.
Like, how dare you come into our thing and tell us we're wrong? And it's like, well, I'm using geology, which, we know the weather. We know the weather patterns from the time period. We know that this is water erosion. Hence, this is a very old structure. He puts it at 12,000 years old, at least.
Yeah. Which, again, that ties back into, well, Egypt was supposed to be fertile then too, right?
Yes. Yeah, it was green.
And so then you're hitting like your Younger Dryas, event as well.
Yes. So he puts it at the 8 because he's saying it has to be many hundreds, if not thousands of years older than the official timeline.
Yeah.
He then used the Younger Dryas, the ending of the Younger Dryas, as the most likely time it was built because it points at that point to Leo on the horizon.
Okay.
And it's where the 3 pyramids match up with Orion's belt. Like, 12,000 years ago is when that happens, which is right at the end of Younger Dryas, whatever cataclysm ends that. And it would have been green and wet for thousands of years at that point.
Yeah.
There's
yeah.
also potential evidence on the pyramids of flooding, like massive flooding, and an explosion. There was an explosion inside the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid, and no one can explain that.
Oh, really? I've never heard that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I can't remember his name. He just put out a documentary, too. I should look that up. One of the ideas is that it was a grain silo, basically. They were storing grain and stuff in there. And there's a certain way that grain can be stored where it will literally explode.
Yeah, that makes sense. Where it kind of like start getting hot in the middle and eventually reach like a flashpoint. I can see that.
Yeah. But there's also, this data that they're putting out saying there are chambers under the pyramids and stuff that is very questionable. But now apparently a few other people have done it and have come up with similar results. So
Interesting.
it is. It's very interesting if true.
Yeah, well.
And that's the problem. It's hard to tell like what's true and what's just
Right.
Why could I not find can't even find the library I put that in. Okay. I can't remember his name. Graham Hancock posted about his documentary and I have not watched it yet. I should probably just have Scott Crichton. That's who it is.
Scott Crichton. Okay, I don't know.
Scott Crichton's stuff is awesome. He makes some very interesting cases for a lot of stuff. And let's see if I can find his documentary real quick before we run out of time. But he's been on a few times. Usually every time he puts a book out, I have to have him on numerous times. Scott Crichton is a football player. That's not the Scott Crichton I want.
Yeah, there's always an athlete with the name of the person that you're looking for.
It is kind of crazy how much that happens.
Athletic doppelganger.
So it's the Great Pyramid hoax. So this is him talking about how the marks inside the Great, because he wrote a book about this and I had him on for it. This is where he talks about the marks inside the pyramid being added by the people who opened those chambers in order to give it a date that they were not originally there. And he has done quite a bit of work to prove that. And if you look up the Great Pyramid hoax documentary, it is free on YouTube.
Okay.
And Graham Hancock, it's on Graham Hancock's page, actually. So, yes, we are just about out of time. So, Saxon, where can people find you?
The best place to track me down these days is on Instagram under Super Inframan. And then, I still float around the Discord and of course, just here.
All right. And Chris?
If you actually wanted to contact me, probably, through the show, do it through the Patreon here, and then you can sign up for the Patreon. But you can also go to brightrectangle.com or look for my films on Amazon or Troma.
And Adrian?
I am Glass Happy on Instagram.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to take a moment here to thank all of my Patreons. Without you, this show would be hard to sustain. So thank you all. And a special shout out to the patrons pledging $10 or more. Greg Ross, Cherry Trapezoid, Tactical Therapist, John Blackburn, Matt in Delaware, Mark Smith, Madeline J., Marty Garza, Critter 80, Gantic, Allison Cook, Super Inframan, 36 Dingo, Sean Cosgrove, Matthew Sproul, Ruth Fortescue, Andrew Nichols, Martha, Tyler Glimstead, Christine, Mothman Bren, Mark Brady, Patricia Gaia-Quinta, Kevin Schreck, Linz Jackson K, Charles in Florida, Land of the Crazy and Communicable, Charles Davis, Kristen L, Giotto, Riker and Stark, Abby Allen, Bright Rectangle, Eric Citron, Kevin, American Rambler, Sam Sharon, Taylor Bell, Thunderboy, Eric Todd, Ann Witowski, Vincent Trewell, Will Powell, Barbara Fisher, Schmooples, Devourer of Mortal Souls, Jay, MTK, History and Coffee, Heather Wigton, Diane B., Beverly Williamson, Zach Thompson, Tom, Early Ritual, Jim and Sophie, Jonathan Frost, Victoria, John Bracken, Paul Jeffries, Janet's Planet, Ron Dupre, Laser Printer Jam, Perry Peters, Varosh K, MJ Armstrong, Jack Huntington, Lauren McLean, Stacy Sherwood, James Lindsay, Billuminati, Strange Stories with the Seeker and Skeptic podcast, Mark Shoemaker, Ron Dupre, Will Cherry, Seed Person, The Ghost Story Guys, Liam Huddock, Harold, Annabelle Smith, Caroline Walker, TDT Skunkworks, Craig Sagastumi, Colin Karras, Matthew Brown, and Paul Guile Simpson. Thank you all so very, very much. All right, there's a lengthy Patreon segment to go along with this show, which Patreons will be getting very quickly. And if you want to become a patron, it's only $3. That's it. And you get extra content with almost every show. You get the shows a couple weeks early. You get them commercial free. And you get bonus stuff on top of that. Plus, if you like the show, it helps me keep it going. I do want to welcome one new patron this week. Jennifer Atkins, welcome. I hope you like the extra content. And the next show up is the 13th anniversary of Where Did the Road Go? And I got a very special guest to join me. So that'll be next show. I've only done this 13 years, and it feels like I've been doing it forever. In a good way, in a very good way. I feel like this was the thing I was supposed to do. I forget there was a time I didn't do it. And yeah, you got at least one show every week for 13 years. And I plan on continuing that and not ever missing a week. So hopefully that I didn't just jinx myself or something. See you next time. You have been listening to Where Did the Road Go? This show is brought to you in part by our Patreons. You can find more at www.wheredidtheroadgo.com. Website designed by John Tudor. The intro for this show was reimagined by Andrew Ham, a.k.a. Lord Happis on Spotify. And the voice is Psyche Kamir of Psyche Corporation. Artwork for the show designed by Timothy Renner, Jeff Ritzman, and Nadim Mahibahi. General inquiries, comments, etc. can be directed to contact at wheredidtheroadgo.com. Thank you all for listening and for all the support. www.wheredidtheroadgo.com.